Hi there. My name is Amitai Meged. I'm a family therapist from Israel. I'm the head of 2 training programs for couples and family therapists in Israel. And I'm the author of 5 books. The last 2 are differentiation-based couple therapy and being worthy. And I was a student of Boszormenyi Nagy in Philadelphia in 90 to 92. And I studied with him, and I loved his work. But I have to admit that I didn't really get all of it then. I got some parts of it. I got the loyalty part, which I loved, but I really didn't get the ethical part. And I didn't understand why it's so important. And I became a family therapist, and I studied more modalities. Actually, when I studied in Philadelphia, I had a teacher that was from the Milano approach, and she had and I liked the Milano approach then because it was more provocative and it dealt with manipulations, and at the time I remember there was the faculty had a debate whether we should learn the Milano approach because it dealt so much with manipulation and the dark side. And I liked it very much. So years have passed, and I've learned different kinds of modalities. And in the last 10 years, I'm a student of David Snarsh, which is a couple therapist from the United States. And he's very much, his style of therapy is provocative, is much more provocative and much more direct. He's not such a nice person as Boszormenyi Nagy was. And I like being provocative in therapy. But about 5 years ago, since I'm a teacher, I started reading again Nagy's work, and I again encountered the ideas of ethical relational ethics and entitlement, and I found a treasure. It's like a diamond. I said, wow, how come I didn't get it then? It's such important ideas. So now I had to integrate it, in a way. And what I'm doing and what I will show you today is a way of, I think the way I'm thinking is in a way, maybe it takes a lot from Nagy, but the way I'm doing therapy is very, very different, as you will see. So I call it, I chose the word worthiness instead of entitlement. I'll tell you why. I don't know if it's in English, it's such a problem, but in Hebrew, the word entitlement can be used, I think also in English, can be used in a positive way and in a negative way. It can be used like a person is entitled and he feels entitled. You get what I'm saying? It's the same, I think. So I decided I need 2 words, different words. I need worthiness for the good side and self-entitlement, which is for the bad side of entitlement. So I call my therapy worthiness-based psychotherapy. And worthiness is very close to entitlement. And my definition of worthiness is an internal permission to receive abundance and pleasure, resulting from self-worth, which is based on actions that are founded on integrity, dialogue, seeing the needs of the other, contribution, and authentic self-expression. So, I mean, it is based on, it's resulting from self-worth, but self-worth is not just a feeling. It's not just, I'm feeling that I have worth. Self-worth has to be based, in my experience and my thinking, on actions. And those actions are founded on integrity, dialogue, seeing the needs of the other, contribution, and authentic self-expression. So I can give myself the internal permission to receive abundance and pleasure only if I act ethically and in a worthy manner. So worthiness-based psychotherapy is a therapeutic approach and a philosophical stance that sees unethical behavior as the basis for difficulties, problems, and symptoms that patients experience. Now, there is the question of judgment. Because if we're talking about ethics, there is bad and there is good. There is judgment in it. I mean, we judge things and we think about things as good and bad. I mean, there is no ethics without judgment. That's what I think. So, but the main schools in psychotherapy teach us not to judge. We're not supposed to judge our patients. Like attachment and object relation theory and containment, we are supposed to contain our patients. We are supposed to see them as to see the little child, the baby who his needs were not met. So when you look at a patient as the product of his childhood, of what he missed, of the needs that he didn't get, you cannot really judge him. Then there is humanism and unconditional positive regard. I mean, this is what Carl Rogers said, right? We should have unconditional positive regard to our patients. But what about patients who do harm? What about violent patients? What about patients who use their children against the other parent, like in parental alienation, which is something that we treat? We are supposed to really have unconditional positive regards to them. And the last influence, big influence, is postmodernism, the strength perspective and narrative therapy. In those perspectives, you're told that every person has his own narrative, and we should respect the other person's narrative. Now, both of us, this is my wife, Julie, and both of us work for the courts in Israel with parental alienation. When you meet a family that has a husband and a wife that divorced, they have such different narratives. Let's say the wife's narrative is that the husband sexually abused the child, and the wife's narrative is that and the husband's narrative is that the wife is punishing him for things he did in the past, and that he's totally a loving parent. So can I just accept that he has a different narrative and she has a different narrative, and I will listen to her narrative and his narrative? No, there is a truth there. There is a truth. And I need to find the truth. And I cannot really work with them without finding what is the truth there. So I'm putting those influences in psychotherapy not because I have something against them. Everybody uses them, I use them. I put them here because there is something lacking there. And what I think is lacking there is the permission for us to have a judgment, to think that something is right and something is wrong. Ethics is at the core of the experience of worthiness or unworthiness that patient experience. So when I'm talking about feeling worthy, about being worthy, about working in the world, feeling that I'm worthy and that I deserve to have a good life, I deserve to have love, I deserve to have money, I deserve to have a good relationship with my children, I'm worthy that my children will respect me. All those things can come only, that's my proposal, only when you are ethical. So actually, patients may not feel worthy for two main reasons. One is that they were treated or are being treated in an unethical manner and are unaware of it and agree consciously or unconsciously to accept this treatment, or they themselves treat others in an unethical manner and therefore cannot be worthy. So when I'm speaking about worthiness, about this feeling that I deserve a good life, I'm saying people will not be able to feel this worthiness if they let other people treat them in an unethical manner. For example, an abused woman in domestic violence that stays in a marriage that she's being abused will not feel worthy. She cannot feel worthy because in a way she knows that she cooperates with an unethical treatment of her. And a person cannot feel worthy, and he's not worthy. It's not only about the feeling. It's about reality. He's not worthy if he is the one who perpetuates, who is the perpetrator of an unethical behavior. You cannot feel worthy, and you are not worthy if you do that. People play with it. I mean, people can do harmful things to other people and still think that they deserve. Actually, they feel that they deserve. I mean, we all know that the concept of destructive entitlement. When people they are feeling destructive entitlement, they feel that they deserve to be harmful to other people because they were harmed. So we know that people can feel that way. So the role of what I call worthiness-based psychotherapy is to help patients earn worthiness. So worthiness is something that you earn. When I talk to people about worthiness, people say, well, but the child is born, he's worthy, and we are all worthy. In this area, there is the new age era. People tell you, well, you just need to remember that you're worthy and you're worthy. Just remember it. Everybody's worthy inside. We are all worthy. I agree that children, that babies are born worthy. But when we grow up, we are not always worthy. Many times we're not always worthy. And I don't want to tell my patients, well, you just need to remember that you're worthy. I want to tell my patients, no, you're not worthy. If you're doing that kind of behavior to your children or your spouse or your parents, to the closest people, you're not worthy. So worthiness is something you need to earn. It doesn't come up automatically. So the role of worthiness-based psychotherapy is to help patients earn worthiness and thereby create the changes they want in their lives. Worthiness-based psychotherapy does this by helping patients make a distinction between whether they feel unworthy as a result of being treated unethically or as a result of treating others unethically. I'll give you a very, very simple example. A student of mine, a supervisee of mine, we did an exercise that everyone was supposed to bring a traumatic memory from childhood. And the traumatic memory she remembered was that she was, 10 maybe, or 9 or something like that in school, and the teacher was very, very angry at her and got her out of the room and told her to sit in a closed room and not go even to lunch. And the children brought her lunch to this room, and she sat there and cried. So at first, when you hear this story, it's very clear that this is a crazy teacher, and probably she is a crazy teacher who lets a child stay in a room without lunch. What kind of punishment is it? But after you listen to it, to the story, at one point I asked her, I had this hunch, and I asked her, tell me, who felt that he has more power in the situation? You or the teacher? And she was thinking about it, and she said, well, it's very clear that the teacher thought that I had more power. Because she was the one who organized rebellion against the teacher. So she remembers this story as a traumatic story, and it is traumatic, but it's not only traumatic. In some ways, she was the strong person in that story. She was a child, but she was able to drive the teacher crazy. She was able to make the teacher, and she knew it. She knew it as a child that she had more power than the teacher. So this is just a simple story, but when I hear stories, I want to get into the story, and I want to feel all the people around and to sense what they're feeling. And sometimes what we will see is that the person who tells the story, for example, I'll say another story. An Orthodox Jew came to my clinic. He has a few children, I think 8 children. One of them is very, very problematic. And on the Friday evening, they have the Sabbath dinner, and this child makes lots of trouble. And all the other children are very, very quiet. And he's the only one who's problematic. And they don't know what happened. I mean, they're such good parents. So I asked him, how was it when you were a child? And in your family, in the Sabbath dinner. And he said, well, it was okay. And I said, tell me more about it. He said, well, sometimes my mother would punish me by putting me in the bathroom and letting me eat in the bathroom, on the toilet. And I'm saying, what? How old were you? And he says, well, I think from 4 to 7. And I'm saying, at age 4, this was your punishment? Your mother put you in the bathroom to eat dinner on the toilet? He said, yes. And I'm saying, and what do you think about your mother? Well, she was a Holocaust survivor, and she had her problems, and she was, and he was saying good things about her and trying to make it all right. And I'm saying, this is humiliating. I mean, she humiliated me. And it was a surprise for him to think about it. This is humiliation. So when I work with people, sometimes what we find is that their stories from childhood were much worse than what they think about them. And sometimes when we work with children, with people, we find that their traumas are not so much a trauma, that was something else that's there. And we need to look at this. We need to help them figure out. And sometimes we need to figure out. We had a workshop not long ago with a person that suffered from his parents. I mean, he was beaten from early childhood all the time. And in our workshop, there is a kind of movement that we do in the morning. It's a 5-day workshop from the morning until the evening. There is a movement, and in the middle of the movement, he started shouting at the people around him, "Don't touch me!" And someone touched him by accident. And everybody was afraid of him in the workshop. I mean, he's big, and he looks like he's intimidating. He looks strange. So people were very, very afraid of him. So now there are two sides to this story. I mean, this person really, really suffered from violence in his childhood, but he's violent today. He's violent today. So there is a question. Of course, he doesn't feel worthy, nothing in his life. But does he? But what is the main focus that we should have in therapy? Do I focus only on how he was abused at childhood and help him feel worthy because he didn't deserve it? Or do I make a focus on the fact that he is abusing today, his wife, the divorce him, and the people around him? So once this distinction is made, worthiness-based psychotherapy, A, challenges patients who have been or are being treated in an unethical manner to stand up for themselves and refuse any harm to them. Only a person who does not allow himself to be harmed, manipulated, or used can feel worthy. And B, confront patients who harm, manipulate, or use others to stop their unethical behavior. Only a person who behaves in a respectful and dialogical manner to others is a worthy person. So the first thing I do is help a person see that he was being harmed, and maybe through if you could bring his parents to the room, that's great, or maybe we can do it in his imagination, or in a workshop we can do it with other people. Stand to that person and tell him, I'm not going to take it anymore, or something for that sort, on that sort. And the other thing is helping patients, start controlling themselves, start taking responsibility for what they do, seeing the harm they do, and do something about it, because you cannot feel worthy, and you're not worthy if you still harm other people. The tools of worthiness-based psychotherapy worthiness-based psychotherapy use non-conservative tools. Because usually what we are told is that we need to be empathic, and we need to be understanding, and we need to love and accept our patients. And criticism, judgment, guilt, things like that are not supposed, we're told, they're not supposed to be part of therapy. I think they should be part of therapy. So we use guilt, we use shame, we use criticism, we use judgment, we use threats, and we use confrontation to move patients from the two positions that do not allow them to worthiness. So, actually, sometimes I want parents to, let's say, I'll give you an example. 8-year-old child has to sleep with her mother by her side. She doesn't, the whole night. So the mother has a mattress near her bed, and from age 3, it's 5 years already, the mother sleeps with the child, not with the husband. And so something happened at age 3. At age 3, the couple went, after the child was asleep, they thought she was sound asleep, and they went out, and they brought a babysitter. But the child woke up in the middle of the night, and she was crying. She wants her mommy back. And after that night, she was like, let's say, traumatized, and she didn't want to. She had to have her parents near her, and she had to have her mother sleeping with near her. Otherwise, she couldn't sleep, and it's already 5 years. And I'm investigating the case, and what I find is that the mother has problems with her husband, of course, and he pushes her to have sex every night, and she doesn't really want to have sex with him. So in a way, it's easier for her to sleep with a child. So my thinking is, this woman actually uses her child for her own good, not for the child's good. I mean, she tells herself, what I'm doing is good. I mean, child suffers, I'm sleeping with her so she can feel comfortable, but it's not the truth. The truth is that this woman does it for herself in order to avoid confrontation and anger and fight with her husband. It's just simply much easier for her this way. So can I judge her? I want to blame her. That's what I want to do. That's what I did. I'm telling her, how old is your child? 8? And you're how old? I don't remember, maybe 32. So how come an 8-year-old child needs to protect you from the argument or from the confrontation with your husband? How come you use this child in order to protect yourself? Is that fair? Are you being fair? This was a surprise for her. Until now, she thought she was the greatest mother. I mean, she sleeps with the child, she helps the child. Now I'm switching it over, and she goes out of the therapy room thinking, well, maybe I'm using my child. Is this what I'm doing? And she feels ashamed about it. And that's it. The problem is solved. I mean, that night, she told the child, you're going to sleep by yourself. It took 2 hours. The next time, it took night, it took an hour. Then it took half an hour, and that's it. The child sleeps soundly every night without her mother. The mother now takes responsibility, and she needs to confront her husband and tell him what's wrong with their sex life, and they need to do something about it. So I'm bringing the issue back to where it's supposed to be dealt with. It's not supposed to be dealt with on the level of her and the child. It's supposed to be dealt with on the level of the couple.
May we ask questions or?
Yeah, ask questions. Why not? Actually, I like it more when we talk and then when I just
okay.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering that probably the wife fled from her husband because he was violent to her. And how is she going to solve that?
He wasn't violent. He was just pushy. He was just too pushy. He wasn't violent. But if he was violent, that's another story. But still, even if he's violent, she needs to deal with it and not her child. And she doesn't need to use her child to protect her, even if he's violent.
But why did she come to therapy in the first place?
Because she wanted the child to go to sleep.
Oh, okay.
That was her complaint. I don't know what to do with the child. 5 years. It's like, yeah, yes.
You know, what you gave as an example, what you were telling her, didn't sound like blaming to me. You were asking questions like, so how come, or do you think it's fair? I think those questions are non-blaming questions. It's just you bring it up.
Holding her accountable.
Yeah. So when you said you blame her, blaming for me would be, what are you doing?
Okay.
You are a bad mother. That would be like shaming, blaming, you need to change it. You were asking questions like, okay, how come? Tell me. And do you think it's fair? And if she said, I think it's fair, then and you say, oh, I do not think it's fair. That would be more blaming. You would be, but that you have open-ended question, which, yeah, keeping you accountable. It's in contextual therapy. It's the biggest challenge to keep our clients accountable. It's difficult. You said, like, how can we keep them responsible for their actions? And it's a challenge. And it's very easy to do it in blaming way, but you didn't. Like, you gave an example. You didn't.
I'm a little provocative.
Yeah, you probably. I think you're.
No, I'm even now using the word blame.
Yes.
I use it for a purpose.
Yes.
I think we're afraid of this world. We're not supposed to blame someone. And I'm saying yes, maybe we are.
No,
I want to use this word on purpose
because
I want us to not be afraid of this word, blaming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in contextual, again, we call it keeping accountable.
Yes.
And I got that provocative sense. That's why I came to your workshop. I want to hear that. But when you work with the client, you're less blaming or provocative with the client. You just ask questions to reflect on. So,
well, you will see later. We have we have a video, and we will show you how we do it.
Okay.
And you will see.
Okay.
Sometimes some people who look at our videos think, well, what are they doing? This is not therapy. Yes.
Can I ask you a question about earlier, at the start of your story?
Yes.
Okay. You told that with couples, with the woman and the husband, and the narrative attitude there of both of them, and then you say like your judgment about it. But how do you see the aspect of multi-directed, and the balance of receiving and giving on that judgment. Do you understand my question? Because
I don't know. Here are two questions. One is about the techniques of multi-directional partiality, and the other one is about balance of giving and taking.
Yeah, that's how Notch finds it very important. The balance of receiving and taking. Receiving and giving, and
yes, like for example, with this girl who sleeps with this mother who sleeps with the girl, who is giving, who is receiving? The mother comes to the therapy thinking that she's the one who is giving to the child.
I'm not about this.
And I'm telling her, no, you're the one who is taking.
Yeah, but I was. My question is about earlier in your story about the partners when they come to you. And then there is a husband and his wife, and they're both arguing. Yeah, then you say, well, I'm.
Yeah, I get what you're
Okay,
saying.
that's what my question was.
I think you'll get an answer in this video, because how we do it, and we do take sides, especially the side of the children.
Yes.
I mean, that's the side we take.
Yeah. Okay.
If the parents are arguing, and I'm not just listening to him and listening to her and giving them attention and acceptance, I'm listening to what is happening to the child, and I might be very clear and very strict with one of them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
The transition to an experience of worthiness opens up new horizons of choice, responsibility, creativity, and authentic self-expression for our patients. So I'm not afraid of being very direct and criticizing and blaming if I know that something can happen. It's not. I mean, you have to know how to do it, and I made mistakes. We made mistakes in the past.
You have to know why you do it. I think it's more important to know why you do it.
Exactly.
Because if you have the client's interest as your main goal, then you can be, as you said, judging or manipulative or everything that postmodernism tries to banish.
Right.
But I would say that I, as a family therapist, which I am more close philosophically to modern family therapy than to postmodern family therapy, I have a clear definition of what is functional and what is dysfunctional. And my task is to guide something from being dysfunctional to being functional. And in this process, probably I will see as being, I don't know, as being judgy or having something that could be a prejudice. But I think if I have the client's interest as the main goal and that therapy means change, then I can assume this, I can take this responsibility of looking as being judged or having preconceptions, because I know that I want to provoke a change.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And when I'm judging the patient, it never should come from my feelings.
Yes. It's from this perspective that you have a definition of what is functional and what is dysfunctional.
And what is ethical and what is not ethical.
Yes.
I have a perspective, and it's not because the patient annoys me that I use judgment. It's because I'm thinking about what was it ethical and what is not ethical. Exactly. Yeah. I just want to be clear about the time. Okay. So actually, I want to say that there are three mental states, we can call them. Defeat, self-entitlement, and worthiness. In defeat, a person who feels defeated feels, I do not deserve. He has a sense of victimhood, lack of value, beggary, dependence, an unfulfilled expectation from the others, pleasing. The notion, if I satisfy the needs of the others, maybe they will pay attention to me and my needs as well. We see in the last generations, a little bit less today, but in the last generations, a defeat was very typical of women. Women who, for example, would, in our culture, would stay in the kitchen for the whole weekend and cook for the other people, and never think even for a moment that they can sit with the other people, with the adults, and eat themselves, and that someone will serve them or someone will cook for them. They have to do it for everyone else. On the other hand, there is self-entitlement, being forceful, using manipulations, compensating, victimhood. I am entitled because I didn't get what I deserve, and destructive entitlement. The husband and the wife, the husband and the children of this wife, who who cooks for everyone and doesn't think that she deserves to sit down and have and someone serve her, they are usually the one who feels self-entitlement. They sit with their legs on the table and they tell their mother, bring me that, mom, bring me that, wife, bring me that. They feel that they deserve it. Sometimes without doing anything. I mean, maybe the husband was working the whole week, so maybe he deserves something. But the children, I mean, they didn't help, but they feel they deserve it. Self-entitlement. I'm entitled. And there is worthiness. Worthiness is I'm worthy. Self-worth, seeing myself while seeing the other. I'm worthy because I contribute. So actually, self-entitlement and defeat are on the same level. And sometimes you can even move from one another to another. I mean, you could be defeated one day or a few hours, and then you can feel self-entitlement on the other next time. And worthiness is another position. In worthiness, there is a balance between really taking care of yourself, bringing yourself authentically, and bringing your needs, bringing your thoughts, bringing your values to the situation, and really wanting the other person to do the same. Really wanting the other person to bring himself also. You don't want to bring yourself and the other person to shut up. You want the other person. You know that if I want to have a good relationship with my wife, I want to bring myself authentically, but I want her to bring herself also authentically to the situation. And only then can I be worthy. So, I'm thinking this is a little bit. I will not get into this. I will show you. I will talk a little bit about this family that we treated. Then we will show the film, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Yes.
Yes. The last slide before this one. I'm worthy because I contribute. But what about all these elder people with dementia and I mean they what do they contribute? Is there an essentialist worthiness? You have an existentialist worthiness that you're talking about, as I understand it, but probably it's possible that I don't understand you correctly. But I mean, when worthiness is connected with giving and providing and establishing, and I mean, is there something essential worthy in us? Without doing anything.
But it's a good question. I usually think about it more I didn't think about it in terms of old people with dementia. And it's a good question. I need to think about it more. Thank you. But did this person contribute all his life? Or was he a burden on society and his family? I think this is the question, because if you did contribute, you don't have to contribute that year or this period. I mean, in general, you have to contribute. And if you don't contribute, no, I don't think a grown-up, an adult, is worthy if he doesn't contribute. Not at that point, I mean, not in this last few years because he has dementia, but in general, if he contribute. I don't think a person who doesn't contribute not only feel, he's not worthy. That's the way I look at it. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about this family that came to us. They came to us through the courts. No, it's here. Yes. So Victoria, 42, and Danny, 44, got together as teenagers, separated and were back together several times until they eventually got married 12 years ago. But then divorced after 2 years. They have 2 children aged 12 and 10. Both parents come from dysfunctional families and both have had violent outbursts towards each other. Both have a history of drug abuse from age 16, and Victoria has also used drugs in recent years. After Victoria divorced Danny, she lived with a criminal who also served time in prison for theft, robbery. She served time in prison for theft, robbery, and violence. She stayed several times in drug rehab communities while Danny took care of the children. Danny had previously been once in a house arrest for violence against Victoria after they had separated. After the divorce, Victoria was given custody for the kids for several years. Danny would meet his children twice a week and every other weekend. Throughout the years, there were brief violations of visitations, and the children would not always visit the father. After it was discovered, Victoria was back using drugs. After it was discovered Victoria was back using drugs, custody was shifted to Danny. A year and a half ago, Victoria asked to return custody to her, but was denied. Then the parental alienation began. Initially, the daughter, 12, moved to the mother and refused to visit the father. Later, the son, 10, joined her. For several months, the children did not meet with him at all. When they met him at school, they didn't talk to him. They also refused to talk to him on the phone. They claimed he was violent and that he neglected them. Victoria incited the kids to take pictures of cockroaches in the father's house to show that the house was unkept. The kids claimed that there was no food at home and that the father imposed many punishments on them, and also said that it was boring for them at his house. The mother claimed the children were traumatized by those visits. In our presentation with actors, it's not the real people, reenacting the conversation between us and the parents, you will see experts from the second and third sessions. At the first meeting, which you will not see, which is not shown here, we met with the couple to gather information and understand their history. In the second session, we dealt with the conflict and the motives for alienation, and we confronted the two partners. In the expert from the third session, you will see the result of our intervention. No.
את יודעת, במשך שנה, עוד לפני...
How do I make it like that?
Yes. Yeah. את יודעת, במשך שנה, עוד לפני שהם הפסיקו ללכת אליו, כשהם היו הולכים אליו, הייתי שולחת את האוכל איתם, כי הוא היה נותן להם אוכל פג תוקף.
את משקרת. אני אביא את רבקי. ותראה כמה אוכל היינו מכינים להם, אוכל טרי, סנדוויצ'ים, הכל היה טעים וטוב בסדר.
אני רוצה טיפול משפחתי.
מדוע?
כדי שהם יפנימו, יוציאו, יאבדו. הילדים עברו פה טראומות.
מה את מקווה שיקרה אז?
אני חושבת שאם הם יוציאו את זה החוצה, זה יקל עליהם, ואז אולי הם ירצו לראות את אבא שלהם, זה מאוד חשוב.
תגידי, איזה תוצאה את יותר רוצה שתהיה? הם באמת ישתחררו מהטראומה שלהם, ואז יהיה להם קל יותר להיפגש עם דני? או שאולי מה שאת באמת רוצה זה שאנחנו נבין עד כמה דני הוא אבא נורא והיום?
ללא ספק, הדבר השני שאמרת נכון. היא כל הזמן עסוקה בלהראות איזה אבא נורא אני, איזה אבא לא טוב אני, בשעה שמי ששכבה מסוממת, מאולפת, מול הילדים, זה היה היא.
שולי, את חושבת שוויקטוריה כל כך עסוקה בלהעניש את דני בזה שהילדים לא ילכו אליו, בגלל שהיא כל כך כועסת עליו על זה שהוא אבא כל כך מזניח וכל כך נורא, או אולי דווקא בגלל זה שהיא רוצה להעניש אותו בגלל שהוא אבא דווקא טוב, בגלל שהוא יודע לעשות את העבודה שלו? You can see that it's a kind of reflecting team. It's not exactly a reflecting team because it's just the two of us, but we sometimes, and you'll see it later, we move the chairs towards each other and we talk, we gossip in a way. We talk about them and it's like we are doing the thinking in front of them.
במשך שנה, עוד לפני שהם הפסיקו ללכת אליו,
wasn't a good idea. Okay, I will not
הייתי
stop.
שולח את האוכל,
We'll just
הוא נותן להם אוכל פג תוקף.
את משקרת. אני אביא את רבקי. ותראה כמה אוכל היינו מכינים להם, אוכל טרי, סנדוויצ'ים, הכל היה טעים וטוב בסדר.
אני רוצה טיפול משפחתי.
מדוע?
כדי שהם יפנימו, יוציאו, יאבדו. הילדים עברו פה טראומות.
מה את מקווה שיקרה אז?
אני חושבת שאם הם יוציאו את זה החוצה, זה יקל עליהם, ואז אולי הם ירצו לראות את אבא שלהם, זה מאוד חשוב.
תגידי, איזה תוצאה את יותר רוצה שתהיה? שהם באמת ישתחררו מהטראומה שלהם, ואז יהיה להם קל יותר להיפגש עם דני? או שאולי מה שאת באמת רוצה זה שאנחנו נבין עד כמה דני הוא אבא נורא והיום?
ללא ספק, הדבר השני שאמרת נכון. היא כל הזמן עסוקה בלהראות איזה אבא נורא אני, איזה אבא לא טוב אני, בשעה שמי ששכבה מסוממת, מאולפת, מול הילדים, זה היה היא.
שולי, את חושבת שוויקטוריה כל כך עסוקה בלהעניש את דני בזה שהילדים לא ילכו אליו, בגלל שהיא כל כך כועסת עליו על זה שהוא אבא כל כך מזניח וכל כך נורא, או אולי דווקא בגלל זה שהיא רוצה להעניש אותו בגלל שהוא אבא דווקא טוב, בגלל שהוא יודע לעשות את העבודה שלו?
ויקטוריה, למה היא צריכה לברוח לסמים?
אני באמת לא יודעת.
אתה יודע, כשאני מסתכל על ההיסטוריה שלך ועל ההתנהגויות שלך, זה נראה כאילו עברת אונס או התעללות מינית. עברת איזה אונס או התעללות מינית בילדות שלך?
עברתי אונס בגיל 13, נכנסתי להיריון, ואושפזתי במחלקה סגורה.
תגיד, איבדת את זה? עברת טיפולים?
היה פסיכולוגים, עובדים סוציאליים, ועוד פעם פסיכולוגים, ועוד פעם... גם כשהייתי במוסדות גמילה, גם עברתי טיפולים.
זה לא התחיל בגיל 13, זה התחיל בגיל 8, עם הדוד שלך, כל החיים שלך זה נמשך.
דני, לא נשמע שיש לך הרבה חמלה למה שוויקטוריה עברה.
היא המשיכה לשכב עם כל העולם, גם שהייתה גדולה, גם שהייתה איתי, וגם שהייתה אימא. איזה חמלה יכול להיות במצב כזה?
מה ההבדל ביני לבינך? גם אתה לקחת סמים, גם אתה היית אלים, גם אתה הרבצת על הגרוש שלי.
על מה את מדברת? אני בחיים לא נגעתי בו, בחיים לא ראיתי אותו.
אתה עשית יד אחת עם אמא שלי נגדי.
זה נכון, אמא שלך ראתה כמה את מדרדרת, ושתינו רצינו לעשות הכל לטובת הילדים. שלחנו אותך למכון גמילה, לטובת הילדים.
אתה הזנחת את הילדים לא פחות ממני.
איזה קלאסה הייתה לך. מגיל 12, מכוני גמילה. חצי עיר הכניסה אותך להיריון. ואת ממשיכה את המסורת שלהם.
ממש מסכן ועלוב. אף הוסטל לא רצה לקבל אותך.
איך אמא יכולה לעזוב את הילדים? את חולת נפש. את צריכה ללכת לטיפול.
אתה איש רע ואכזר.
אתה יודע, מיטי, אני תוהה, למה בעצם דני אין לו כל כך רחב לב כלפי ויקטוריה?
כן, הוא ממש רומס אותה, כאילו הוא לוקח סיגריה ומועך אותה.
אני רוצה לדעת, איפה אני משפיל? תגידי לי.
דני, איך אתה רוצה שוויקטוריה תשתף איתך פעולה כשאתה כל כך רומס אותה ומשפיל אותה?
מאז שהתגרשנו הוא מזלזל ומשפיל אותי.
ויקטוריה, האם יש אפשרות שבעצם את מאפשרת ולא מעודדת את הילדים ללכת לאבא כסוג של נקמה על כל השנים שהוא רמס אותך?
אני לא חושבת. אני לא שולחת אותם לשם כי רע להם שם, הוא מזניח אותם.
הילדים חוזרים על מה שאמא שלהם אומרת להם. בבית תמיד יש אוכל נקי וטרי, אבל הילדים צועקים ומעללים על העלילות. בזמן האחרון אני מרגיש שהילדים כאילו לא הילדים שלי. היחס שלהם של זרות, כאילו אני לא אבא שלהם.
תגידו, אתם מכירים את הסדרה של סיזר מילן, הלוחש לכלבים? אני רוצה לספר לכם, יש שם איזה קטע. סיזר מילן הרי הוא נקרא למצבים שבהם כלבים שמתנהגים בצורה מאוד מאוד בעייתית. אז יש שם איזה גבר ואישה, ויש להם, הגבר יש לו סדנה כזאת שהוא עובד בחצר על אופנועים, תקן אופנועים. והוא עובד שם שעות כל יום. והכלבה שלהם עומדת מול הסדנה שלו ונובחת, שעות היא נובחת. אז האישה שלו מזמינה את סיזר מילן בשביל לטפל בכלבה. סיזר מילן מגיע, שומע מה קורה, רואה מה קורה, ואז הוא שואל את האישה, תגידי, מה את חושבת על זה שהבעל שלך עובד בסדנה הזאת כל היום. אז היא אומרת, אני לא כל כך אוהבת את זה. אומר לה, למה? כי הוא לא נמצא איתי, אנחנו בקושי מבלים, זה נראה כאילו הוא יותר אוהב להיות שם מאשר להיות איתי. ואז הוא שואל אותה, ואמרת לו את זה? היא אומרת לו, לא, אני לא אומרת לו את זה, כי אני רוצה לכבד אותו, את מה שהוא עושה. אז הוא אומר לה, בואי. לוקח אותה, לוקח את הכלבה, הולכים לסדנה, נכנסים לבעל, ואז הוא אומר לה, עכשיו אני רוצה שתגידי הכל לבעל שלך. וזה מדהים, כי הם נכנסים, הכלבה נובחת בהתחלה, נובחת, ואז הוא מתחיל לספר לה אז האישה מתחילה להגיד לבעל שלה את כל מה שהיא מרגישה. הוא אומר לו, תשמע, זה קשה לי, זה מסובך לי, אני מרגישה שמתגעגעת אליך, אתה כל היום נמצא פה. וככל שהיא מדברת, הכלבה נרגעת, ומפסיקה לנבוח, ואחרי כן הכלבה מפסיקה לנבוח, פשוט מפסיקה לנבוח עליו. כאילו ברגע שהיא אמרה לו את הדברים, אז הכלבה לא הייתה צריכה להגיד את זה במקומה. ואצלכם זה אותו דבר, הילדים שלך מדברים את מה שאת אומרת, הם אומרים לא, כמו הכלבה הזאת בסרט.
מיטל, בואו נדבר קצת בינינו. אתה יודע, מה שאני רואה זה שבעצם דני זלזל ורמס הרבה שנים את ויקטוריה. וקשה לי להאמין שהדבר הזה לא ממשיך ומחלחל גם לילדים.
בטוח שזה עובר לילדים. כל פעם שנמצאים אצלו בבית, הם מרגישים את זה, ובטח רוצים להגן עליה.
שאמא מותקפת, בעצם. ואז באופן טבעי, הם מרגישים שהם צריכים להיחלץ ולגונן עליה, פשוט לעזור לה.
נכון, וברגע שוויקטוריה קלטה את זה, זה היה כאילו מוצאת שלל רב, והתחילה להשתמש בזה כדי להעניש את דני.
ופתאום אחרי שנים של הזנחה, היא הפכה להיות האמא האפייה הטובה, והיא מחבקת וקשובה לצרכים שלהם. והוא הפך להיות המפלצת.
ובעיקר לא שמה שום טיפת גבול לילדים שלה. כל מה שאתם רוצים לקבל בבית הזה הם מקבלים.
כן, זה בדיוק ככה. אני לא יודע מאיפה יש לה כסף. כל הזמן היא הולכת, מסתובבת איתה בקניון, קונה להם דברים, מאיפה יש לה כסף, לא יודע.
תראה, יש לי קצת כסף מהדירה של אמא, אבל אני באמת רוצה לפצות אותם על כל הטראומות שהם עברו איתך. זה נראה לי בסדר גמור.
אצלך הם ישנים מתי שהם רוצים. לפעמים הם לא מגיעים לבית ספר. אצלי הם תמיד ישנים בזמן ותמיד הולכים לבית ספר.
גם אצלי הם הולכים לבית ספר.
כן? בוא נבדוק כמה פעמים יורם לא הלך לבית ספר בחודש האחרון.
היו לו כמה ימים שהוא הרגיש לא טוב.
באמת, מי יכול לנצח את זה? ברור שהם ירצו להיות בבית שלך, כי אצלך תמיד יש כיף ועושים מה שרוצים, ובבית שלו יש תמיד מטלות וכל מיני דברים שצריכים לעשות.
ויקטוריה, אין ספק שמצאת דרך לקחת את הילדים לצד שלך.
אני לא מנסה לקחת אותם לצד שלי.
מנסה או לא מנסה, את הצלחת. הצלחת להביא את הילדים שלך למצב שבו הם תופסים את אבא שלהם כמפלצת ואותך כמלאך.
זה לא אני הבאתי אותם למצב הזה, זה הוא!
ויקטוריה, ללא ספק, דני השפיל ורמס אותך הרבה שנים אחורה. אנחנו ראינו את זה אפילו פה, בטיפול. אבל את מצאת דרך לנקום בו ולקחת את הילדים לצד שלך.
את יודעת מה, ויקטוריה? אני חושב שאת בתוך תוכך יודעת שדני הוא בסך הכל אבא בכלל לא כל כך רע, שיש לו הרבה צדדים טובים. למעשה יש לו צדדים שבהם הוא הרבה יותר טוב גם ממך.
כל מה שאני אומרת מתוך מה שהילדים אמרו לי. אני לא המצאתי שום דבר.
ומה את עושה, ויקטוריה, כשהם מספרים לך דברים כאלה?
אני מקשיבה להם, מה אני עושה? אני אמא שלהם.
תמיד מאמינה למה שהם אומרים?
אני מאמינה, אני אימא שלהם, אני מאמינה להם.
ויקטוריה, ולא חשבת שאף פעם שאולי הם מנצלים את ההקשבה הזאת שלך ומתחמקים ממטלות וסמכות כמו שיש להם אצל אבא?
סמכות שהם זקוקים לה, ואת לא ממש נותנת להם?
אני הייתי רוצה ששניהם יסתכלו פנימה עד הפעם הבאה והתבוננו, כל אחד על עצמו, מה העבודה שהוא צריך לעשות. הייתי רוצה שדני יסתכל ויתבונן פנימה בשבוע הזה ויחפש את התרומה שלו לשנאה של ויקטוריה כלפיו. ואיך כל הרמיסות האלה וההשפלות האלה והשנאה בעצם גורמו לויקטוריה להסית את הילדים נגדו, בעצם ככה לנקום בו.
ואת ויקטוריה הייתי רוצה שהיא תתבונן בעצמה ותראה איך היא מכבדת בקשר של הילדים איתו, ואיך היא מונעת בעצם מהם קשר טוב עם אבא שאוהב אותם.
ושתסכים להתבונן ברגשות הנקמה שלה, ואיך היא משתמשת בילדים כדי לנקום בו.
אוקיי, אז עבר שבוע וגם הייתם בבית משפט. בואו ספרו מה עבר ואם היו לכם איזה מחשבות.
אני רוצה להגיד לך שלקח לי זמן להגיע לתובנות האלה. ואני מאוד שמחה שדרך הטיפול, דרככם, יכולתי לראות את שיתוף הפעולה הלוקה שלי עם הילדים. ואני רוצה להגיד לך, דני, שאני באמת מתנצלת על כל הדרך, על ההכפשות ועל המסע המכוער שלנו. אני מאוד מאמינה בדרך שלך ובחינוך שלך, דני. אני אתמוך ואני אצדד בדרך שלך, וכל המטרה שתהיה לנגד עינינו זה טובת הילדים. ואם אני טועה, אתה יודע, אני בן אדם, אני אשמח שתגיד לי. אתה יודע, אני אהיה איפשהו פועלת מהרגש ופחות מההיגיון. אני באמת רגועה שהם איתך. השבוע דיברתי עם הילדים ואני הרגשתי שהם חוששים להראות לי את השמחה שהם חווים איתך, את ההתלהבות הזאת, הם ממש חששו להראות לי את זה. ואז אמרתי להם בשיחת טלפון שאני מאוד שמחה שרבקי שיחקה איתם טריוויה ושהם מכינים ארוחת ערב ביחד. אמרתי להם שזה מאוד מרגיע אותי וזה גורם לי אושר שהם נמצאים במקום טוב, במקום שהם דואגים להם ואכפת להם ולא רק מול המסכים. אתה יודע, אני חושבת שהם הבינו את זה, אבל הם יבינו את זה לאט לאט עוד יותר.
יש עוד עבודה.
אתה יודע, אבל זה יתחיל ויגמר בנו ובשיתוף פעולה שלנו. ואני ממש מקווה שנצליח להתעלות מעל הזוועה שהייתה בינינו. אתה יודע, ננסה להקל אחד על השני, לראות את טובת הילדים, צריך לנסות להקל עליהם. ולראות איך אנחנו יכולים לקדם ואיך לעזור לילדים שלנו.
זה באמת מרגש אותי מה שאת אומרת. הגעתי למצב שאני כל הזמן נלחם להצדיק את האבהות שלי, ולהראות מי אני ומה אני, וכל הזמן נלחם על זה. ובפגישה האחרונה החלטתי שאני לא נלחם על זה. זה מי שאני. אני שמח על הדרך הזאת. יש עוד מה לעבוד, כי יש בינינו הרבה פערים, כמו השיחה שהייתה לנו בדיון בבית המשפט בשבוע שעבר. כן, אני חושב שהטיפול הזה מאוד מאוד מטיב איתנו. אני חושב שאתם נותנים לנו כלים, ואני זוכר את הפגישה הראשונה שנכנסתי שפוף ומיואש. ואני חושב שהטיפול הזה יכול לגשר על הרבה דברים שאנחנו לא מסכימים בינינו. כי עדיין, עם כל הרצון הטוב, יש פערים גדולים בינינו.
This is a miracle that happened. Most of the times it's different. but this was a very emotional, very exciting case at that period. And after this session, there were 3 months of really good therapy. They came sometimes as a whole family, sometimes just a couple, and we worked with them about cooperating, how to cooperate, and the children again saw the 2 parents from, and there was no problem after that. But after 3 months, she disappeared. Didn't answer phone calls, didn't come to therapy, didn't see the children.
Mother.
The
mother.
The mother just disappeared. And after a month where nobody knew where she was in jail. She got caught for, I don't know what, maybe selling drugs, I don't know what. She came back to drugs. So it doesn't really have a really happy ending, this story, but this is what happened. But we wanted to show this, even though, I want to go back. So we wanted to show this because to see how we can sometimes be provocative, and something happens. I mean, the children before that just didn't see the father for I think it was almost 2 months, and after this
7 months.
7 months didn't see the father for 7 months, and after this session they want to see him. It just happened because I don't know, something happened with the mother. The mother just realized that what she was doing. So I use the metaphor of burning the ships. I don't know if you know Tariq Ben Ziad. Yes.
I have a question. I saw you too in the session. What's the reason of it doing it together, the therapy?
Well, when we get, usually we work separately. She has her own patients and I have my own patients. But when we get cases from courts, for the court, they're so complicated that I'm just afraid to do them alone, and I want to do them together. And it works much better when we do them together. We can think about it. I mean, before that, when we got these kind of cases from court, I would just be exhausted at the end of the session, and I would be flooded, and I couldn't think. But with her, we can think inside the session, talk to each other and think of after the session, and it helped us do a better job for the reason. Yeah. So I don't know if you know the story about Tariq bin Ziyad. Tariq bin Ziyad was where are we? Yeah, was an Arab Muslim person from I think Morocco, Algeria, I don't remember, from Africa. I think it was the 7th century, I don't remember. And he wanted to conquer Spain and Portugal. So they brought ships and they sailed in the Mediterranean and got to Spain. And then all his troops got down with all their weapons and artillery. And then he told them to burn the ships. And after they burned all their ships, he said, well, there is no coming back. You cannot go back to Africa. Now you have to win the war. You have to win the war. So I like this metaphor because this is, in a way, what we do. When we use strong language and strong metaphors with clients, it's like burning the ships. It's like telling them there is no way, you cannot come back. You cannot do what you did. And it's not only with this kind of cases. Also with just couples, I don't know. Couples who, I don't know, sometimes manipulate each other, sometimes humiliate each other. We will use strong language and strong metaphors in order for them to feel a little ashamed. So something happens immediately in their lives after they go home, and in a way it disturbs them to do what they are used to doing. And when they stop doing what they're used to doing, something else can grow. So we use metaphors, we use images and bold language to block the possibility of family members of using the old weapons. Another metaphor that I like, I call it the frog pot. You know the story about the frogs that, I don't know if it's a true story or not, but people tell the story that you put frogs in a pot, and if you warm the water very, very slowly, so slowly that the frogs don't realize that it's warm, they stay in the pot until they are boiled. But if you would turn off the heat much higher, and the water would warm quicker, the frogs would jump because they would feel that something happens. So in a way, this is what we feel we need to do sometimes. Sometimes we need to put the heat up, so at least one frog jumps out of the pot and tries and wants to do something else. So in couple therapy, this is something that we do a lot, because it seems that couples and families sometimes they get used to bad things. They get used to having no passion to each other, to not talking for months with each other, to bad language, to all kinds of things, and to manipulation. So sometimes we need to put some pressure. And we put the pressure on the person we think that is going to jump first and say, not anymore. I don't want it anymore. I'm not going to... And that person will hopefully look at his partner, or maybe sometimes it's the children, grown-up children, not small children, grown-up children. Or sometimes it's, you look at the parents, sometimes you look at your spouse, and you tell them, you know what, I'm not going to cooperate with this horrible, destructive game anymore. I want something different. So our purpose in therapy is not to help the couples feel at ease, and to help the couple feel better about themselves, and to help the couple feel that it's more harmonious. No, we think that our role is to help the couple feel how not harmonious it is, how destructive it is, so they can do something about it, so they will not accept it anymore. So, yeah, I guess this is what we need to say. And the last thing I want to say today is that I call it bring the future to the present. The practitioner visions the full potential of his patients while using concepts of differentiation and worthiness. The question he asks himself is, how would my patient behave if he was differentiated and worthy? So, I have ideas. I have ideas about how a person who is differentiated and worthy looks like. How does it look like? And actually I have lots of points. I don't have time to show them to you now, but when I teach my students, I show them lots of points, like, I don't know, maybe 40 points, of how does a person who is differentiated and worthy looks like. How does he behave? And when patients come to me, I ask myself that question. How will he look when he will be differentiated? How will he look when he will be worthy? And I have a vision of it. And in a way, I bring that vision to the room. And when I push the clients to change, I push them towards those goals. So, as you said, I'm not postmodern, I'm modern. I have ideas of what is right and what is wrong. And I take the... I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid to lead.
The process. The process of therapy, which is, I would say, it's a good thing. We should be accountable that we are leaders of the process of therapy. And this is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that we are in a power position per se, but we are in a power position in that professional role.
I agree with you. That's what I think. But if you in times of postmodernism, it's considered bad. It's not considered that good.
Yes. Or not, probably not bad, but questionable.
Questionable. Yeah. Other thoughts or questions? Yes.
I just was wondering if the rhythm of talk in the video, in which I felt was very quick and very rich, is it a strategy or is it like this?
First of all, this is 50 minutes taken out of a 1 hour session.
Okay.
So you see the highlights, or you see. So it's not like that.
Okay.
But sometimes it is. I mean, parts of the session are like that. Part of the session we are like that, and sometimes we, of course, we listen and we ask questions and we are. So yeah. We wanted to show you a taste of this of those techniques. We didn't show the whole thing. But of course, it takes much longer in reality. Thanks. Yeah.
When the woman started to speak about her husband as a worthy father, she didn't show, but probably I went very far, but I didn't see any emotion in her, because it was a huge turn she made in a week time, and there were no tears. Probably people in Israel don't cry,
No.
But I mean, it was so flat. How do you say that in English? Flat. Yes.
You're right. I mean, this is an actor. It's not the real woman. This is an actor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the actor didn't see the session, but she heard the session. I mean, the session was taped, and the actor heard the session, and it's close to reality. I mean, it was a surprise, and it was like, we were surprised. What happened was that I couldn't start the tape, so I couldn't explain it to you. After the second session, she was, they were fighting after the second session, and we're living in a village, and there is like 20 minutes of walking till the gate of the village. And she asked the ex-husband to take her, and he didn't want to take her. So she had to walk. He went with the car and she had to walk the 20 minutes. And after about 10 minutes, we went out to our things. And we saw her walking and she was crying. She was crying. So, and when she was crying, we thought, well, maybe something happened. Maybe something, she internalized something. And something did happen. I mean, it took a week. So I don't really have a really good explanation for it. But sometimes it does happen this way. Sometimes things happen. Yeah.
Now the situation is that both of the parents are in the same room at the same time. In the Netherlands, and maybe you recognize it, and other countries, we have a big problem of parents who are fighting. When they separate and they fight, and the children are in there. And in our work, it's not always able to put both parents at the same time in the same room.
We are working with the judge, and the judge told this woman, you have to do it, and I will fine you if you don't come to therapy.
Yeah.
So this is court order, and this is under the court, and this is not really regular therapy because they always in those couples, one of them doesn't want to come. But they are forced to come.
Yes, but how do you do it when there's no court and no judge, but they come to you, but they do not want to come together?
In difficult cases, we don't take them if there is no court.
Yeah, okay.
In the easier cases, we talk to them on the phone, and if they came to us, we might do work with one of them or the other one. But if we see it's a difficult case, we tell them only with the court.
Can I ask, when they work with not one another, do you work with the father and you with the mother, or do you both work with one and then the other? And how do you do the dialogue with one person in the room? So
we don't like that. We don't like to work with them separately. Okay. We feel that the best work is both of them in the room. So if the court is ordered, if it's court ordered, we tell the judge we want them both in the room. So Shuli works with the alienated parent alone. But in those cases, she doesn't see the other one. She just sees the alienated parent. But in the cases where it's court ordered, we see both of them.
This is why I had the feelings, and it's only the feeling. In the second session, she told for you what you would like to hear. I had this feeling. She changed her behavior and she changed her attitude because I had the feeling she tell you what you would like to hear from her. I had this feeling. And maybe in the situation when the court put them to go into therapy, can be a situation when they said what you would like to hear because it's not good, they please, okay, so it's just a feeling.
Yeah, it's part of the story, maybe but I think something, because we saw her crying after the first session, I think something did happen to her.
Yes.
So where are we with time? We have 5 more minutes. Any more questions or comments? Yes.
Going off of what you just said about maybe the mother saying something just to please, it goes back to the point you were making earlier, that even if that's true, change still happened because the children had a new experience of their father. And I think that's
something is changing.
That's still a powerful thing, and so it's interesting that even if it's not 100% genuine in the beginning, she still continued to concern. And considering the fact that you shared that she ended up being incarcerated again, thank goodness they had developed that time to be with both of them. because their father could be a better parent while she was out of the picture. So, I mean, I appreciate seeing this and seeing the complications of change with families.
Right.
And
We had. I mean, now in the COVID, we didn't get families from the course. But before, the year before the COVID, we had 10 families, and in 7 out of them, the child went to the other parent after like 2 or 3 sessions like that. The child just went to the other parent without us forcing him to go, just because what happened with the parents. It's not that the parents suddenly hugged each other and were friends. It didn't happen. They were horrible afterwards, but at least the child started seeing both parents, which is great. I mean, this is a huge difference.
Yeah. Yes, and the big power, I think, when they saw you, you think for them. 2 people stayed there and want to resolve this problem. And somebody take very seriously what is happening with us.
Right.
And they can see you, how they can go in this dialogue, and they can thinking about this. They try to find a way, and I think this is a big force for them.
Right.
How you working in this way? Maybe in their life didn't find the people who care, who care about them. And you care very much, and you're thinking, and you speak, and you use a metaphor, and it's a very big effect. It could be a...
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
And also, you asked about multi-directed partiality.
Mm-hmm.
So this is multi-directed
Yes.
partiality, but it's
Yes,
also
I saw it.
but it's also multi-directed blaming.
Yeah.
Because we blame the father and we blame the mother. We blame the father for being very harsh and being very abusive to her, and we blame the mother for not sending the children to the father.
Yes. And so you are man and woman, and this is very heavy situation.
Yes.
You make the balance, the feminine and masculine part.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.